Morning, and thank you all for joining us here today. The things we'll be talking about today are initiatives that we have in our government that should make building of housing more affordable and easier to accomplish. There's pieces of this that reside within Bill 20. There's pieces that reside within the city charter update amendments that we've been talking about for a long time with the big cities. And there's a policy update to the CRL, Community Revitalization Levy, all included in what I'm about to speak to you about today. So it's nice to be here with my colleague, Minister Nixon, to talk about some of the measures we're taking to address a major challenge facing many Alberta communities. It is no surprise that affordable and attainable housing has become one of the most urgent concerns all across Canada. And as families from across Canada and indeed the world continue to move here in record numbers, Albertans' need for attainable, affordable, and just frankly housing, all housing, is paramount. Why is affordable and not affordable housing part of this? Well, because we're short on all forms of housing, and let's face it, folks, more wealthy people can outbid less wealthy people for the affordable housing if they haven't got any of the choices to live in. So it's important that we build more affordable housing and more market housing, because all of that is needed. Minister Nixon is leading the charge in his ministry to ensure we get more shovels in the ground to build housing that Albertans need. And Municipal Affairs has already been setting the stage for more housing development by ensuring efficient approvals for housing projects at the provincial and municipal levels. Many municipalities are already leading the way by setting records for swift permit approval timelines. Honorable mention today goes to the City of Leduc and Grand Prairie, who are doing a great job in this area. We continue to urge all municipalities to do the same, remove red tape, and to allow more housing to be built here in the Edmonton region and right across Alberta. And today we are here to support just that. That's why today I'm pleased to talk more about the housing-related changes that we are introducing to the Municipal Government Act through Bill 20 and other initiatives we're pursuing to encourage housing development in municipalities across Alberta. Through Bill 20, we are updating the Municipal Government Act to fully exempt non-profit, subsidized, affordable housing from municipal and education property taxes. This is a blanket property tax exemption for all nonprofit, subsidized, affordable housing in Alberta. Municipalities told me that they are interested in supporting affordable and attainable housing through taxation measures, and we will work with them so they understand which properties will qualify for this property tax exemption. We are also updating the Municipal Government Act to require municipalities to offer digital options for public hearings about planning and development. Our goal with this change is to encourage more public participation in the planning and development process at the local level, even if it's hard for some people to make the trip to wherever the public hearing is held. Having said that, we are also encouraging municipalities to make decisions in a timely manner, which is why we are restricting the ability for municipalities to hold extra public hearings that are not required by legislation. We are also proposing to limit the ability of municipalities to require non-statutory studies for building and developing permits. We recognize relevant studies can be important for effective planning and development, but sometimes municipalities require studies that are not necessary and costly and actually delay the building of the affordable housing that this province and the people in it so desperately need, and they need it now. We will work with municipalities and industry to identify what kinds of studies are appropriate and clarify those requirements in regulation. These MGA amendments we are proposing will help municipalities and their residents find the right balance. Municipal Affairs is also taking action outside of the MGA to pursue our government's overall goal of creating affordable and attainable housing options for Albertans. We are expanding the criteria of the Community Revitalization Levy program guidelines to include the capital costs of privately owned affordable or attainable housing, in addition to projects from the public and not-for-profit sectors. Why? Because we need housing in all places, in all forms, right now. A Community Revitalization Levy, or CRL, is a planning and financing tool that allows a municipality to dedicate future property tax revenues over a defined and not permanent period of time to finance redevelopment projects within a designated area. During the term of the CRL, municipalities can invest in redevelopment initiatives. The CRL program has already seen great success in Calgary and Edmonton, and other communities like Cochrane and Airdrie are using it as well. Our goal is that this approach gives cities one more tool they can consider using to address housing issues at the local level. The changes I've spoken of so far apply to any Alberta municipality. We also know the need for housing is particularly acute in Edmonton and Calgary, where both economic pressures and population growth is putting further pressure on housing needs. Alberta's government has proposed several updates to the city charters in Calgary and Edmonton that are intended to remove potential barriers to housing development. Off-site levies are additional costs that a municipality can charge to developers for building new developments. We are clarifying the rules for off-site levies to ensure transparency and accountability. Unlike every other municipality in Alberta, there's currently a limited ability for developers to appeal off-site levy decisions in Calgary and Edmonton. This can result in developers assuming more risk and passing the associated costs onto the consumer, thereby raising the actual house price of new housing, which we desperately need. And we need it in the most affordable way possible. The proposed updates will allow developers to appeal off-site levies to the Land and Property Rights Tribunal, just like developers in any other Alberta municipality. The second significant change concerns the provisions around a specialized form of zoning called inclusionary housing. It's a policy unique to Calgary and Edmonton in their charters. It enables them to require developers to provide either housing units, land, or money, which the big cities could then use to increase non-market housing. As we've heard from the development community, inclusionary housing could have a chilling effect on their willingness to invest in cities to build housing. And that's probably a big reason why Calgary and Edmonton has never, ever used this inclusionary housing provision, even though it's been available to them for several years. Neither municipality has needed the inclusionary housing part of the charter to actually act, as I believe they both are trying to act in good faith to get more housing built. So they've been getting that done without that section. So we're going to take these provisions off the board and take other kinds of action to address affordable housing without potentially driving up associated development costs. Finally, the last change we're making to the city charters is to repeal Edmonton and Calgary's authority to create bylaws related to building codes and energy efficiency standards. Alberta's government has been working to update the building, fire, and energy codes in a way that best fits the needs of Albertans. We have worked closely with industry, representatives, safety agencies, and technical experts across the province. Should be consistent no matter where you reside in Alberta. And I would say they should be consistent no matter where you reside. Moving this inconsistency would otherwise cause confusion and potentially increase the cost of new housing for Edmonton and Calgary families. Housing is a provincial priority that affects all Albertans and our community, so it's important. The actions outlined today will do just that by helping keep housing costs down, even as we get shovels into the ground more quickly. Thank you. And now I'd like to invite.
Well, good morning and welcome, everyone. Thank you, Mr. McIver, for having us here today to speak to your announcement. It's an opportunity that I relish to be able to come and talk about some of the policies that are being introduced in parts of Minister McIver's legislation and other work that he's doing that ultimately is going to help our province address some of, excuse me, guys, our province address some of our housing of home ownership. And our government is committed to making sure it remains achievable to all Albertans. That's why we're working to make sure Albertans have access to housing options that make sense for them. The best way to keep Alberta affordable is to increase our housing supply and to speed up construction to do so, which is why we are working with our partners at all levels to undertake this challenge. Our plan is already delivering on results. This year, we've already seen nearly 10,000 new housing starts under construction in our province. That's up from 6,200 housing starts that we saw at the same time last year. And we haven't even hit the peak of construction season yet in our province. This year, we're already on track, we believe, to double the amount of housing starts in the province of Alberta. And a third of those new homes are rental units, which is very critical. In fact, in the last 3 years, we see more new rental homes that have been built in our province than in the previous 15 years combined. These numbers that we're seeing are very promising, but they are only the beginning. Our government is committed to keeping up this progress so that we can turn those housing starts into new homes for Alberta families. Mr. McIver's work and his legislation is a big step in helping us meet our goals. By reducing undue process and creating a regulatory environment that supports building both affordable and attainable homes. If passed, these amendments will give housing a jumpstart here in Alberta. There are so many barriers to building more homes that we have the power to remove. And with this legislation, we will address these barriers, encouraging more efficiency, which ultimately gets more shovels in the ground. By reducing the number of unnecessary public hearings, removing property tax on affordable housing and other measures, we are speeding up the process at the municipal level. These actions are just part of our government's overall strategy to expand housing in Alberta to meet the demands of our growing province. We will continue to implement our Stronger Foundation strategy here in our province, which will help us support a total of 82,000 more low-income households by 2031. This includes exploring innovative building techniques, financial incentives, and the continuation of partnership with organizations and communities across the province. We want to make sure that we are working with our partners at all levels to expand our housing supply and to keep Alberta's housing affordable. We will continue to work with municipalities to reduce red tape and to ensure more homes are getting built in communities. We'll continue to work with our sister ministries like Municipal Affairs to reduce red tape, to also be able to build more homes. It's very important work. And ultimately, we have to understand that every time that we create a new unit, we're creating a home for another Albertan. Our government will keep working to ensure Albertans have a place to build their lives, a place to raise their families, and most importantly, a place to call home. And with that, I'd like to introduce you to Sahib, who is the Director of Government Relations with Build Alberta, to talk a little bit about Minister McIver's announcement today.
Thank you, Ministers, Minister McIver, Minister Nixon. I'm very happy to be here today. I'm pleased to be here on the behalf of Build Alberta Association to give our perspective on the steps the Government of Alberta has highlighted to accelerate the construction of affordable and attainable housing province-wide. I commend the Government of Alberta for recognizing the critical need to address housing affordability and for taking action to ensure municipalities province-wide offer a transparent and predictable regulatory framework that includes the necessary tools to tackle this pressing issue. Today's announcement signifies a significant stride towards fostering a more inclusive and accessible housing market for all Albertans. By amending the Municipal Government Act to support the construction of affordable and attainable housing through a variety of measures and streamlined processes, the government is demonstrating its commitment to increasing housing supply and reducing barriers to development. The full exemption of nonprofit subsidized affordable housing from municipal and education property taxes, and with the provision of multi-year residential property tax exemptions, will incentivize industry to invest in much-needed housing projects across the province. Additionally, the requirement for digital options for public hearings and development ensures that residents have a voice in shaping their communities while also streamlining decision-making processes to prevent undue delays in housing construction. The Community Revitalization Levy Program, coupled with the government's willingness to support capital costs of privately owned affordable or attainable housing, further highlights its commitment to fostering a vibrant and inclusive housing market. The update to city charters add critical elements of predictability and certainty. They are a welcome step towards eliminating barriers to the construction of more attainable housing. With these amendments, the government is fostering transparency and accountability while ensuring that housing development remains a viable and sustainable endeavor. In conclusion, the steps detailed by the Government of Alberta today mark significant progress in our collective efforts to address housing affordability in our province. As stakeholders, the building and land development industry, we stand ready to collaborate with all levels of government to turn policies into actionable solutions that will benefit all Albertans. Together, we can build a future where affordable and attainable housing is within reach for every individual and families across our beautiful province. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move on to questions from the media. We'll start with reporters here in the room, and then we'll move on to the phone lines. Please state your name and your outlet, and we'll do one question, one follow-up. Do we have Michelle?
Yeah, I have an off-topic question for Minister Nixon. I want to ask you about the Ombudsman report. Evan Zanari, the young man in the Ombudsman report, and about him in his case. you know, the ombudsman said in the report that the ministry should take a second look at Evan's case, his PDD application. You just shut it down immediately. I'm just trying to understand why.
Well, a couple things. First, I mean, the ombudsman also says in his report that our policy was followed. What the ombudsman went on to say was that he didn't like the policy. The reality is that the young man in question is in a program with the government of Alberta where he is being cared for. And that is with AISH, where there are several $1,000s a month in supports that are provided to this individual, which is good. Our government has multiple ways that we work with the disabled in the province. In fact, my department spends about $3.5 billion, almost 50% of the entire budget of social services goes towards those programs. That would be PDD, AISH, family with children with disabilities as other examples that would make up those programs. And to change that policy for one individual would disrupt and create significant challenges for the PDD program going forward. And so the government's position is, and that's what I was clear on yesterday, is that we are comfortable with what our current process for PDD. We will be maintaining it, not changing it. And we will also be making sure, though, that other programs that we have in cases like this, where an individual does not meet the requirements of PDD, that we have other programs to be able to help care for them going forward. So this is not about not wanting to provide care for an individual. This is about making sure that our programs, and we are using the appropriate programs for the appropriate individuals.
But I'm wondering, though, I mean, the ombudsman pointed out that this is not really, it's not really up to date, that there were other criteria that you could use, because this is not the only case. You know, of course, there was a case from 10 years ago where the judge flagged that, and there were other people as well that we don't know about. So I'm just wondering, like, I guess I'm really struggling to understand why you wouldn't want to have the most updated criteria.
Well, we disagree with the ombudsman's position. He's welcome to have his position. We are confident and comfortable with the process that we do using IQ to make decisions around our PDD programs.
Is it money?
And
is it money because you would have to spend a whole lot more?
Well, certainly when you change programs, there would be, if we were to create different criteria, we would have to look at the economic impacts of them. But we are confident and comfortable with the process that we use. By the way, it's been used by multiple governments since those court cases, including the NDP. When they were in government, they did not change it because the advice that they'd be getting is the same as mine, that this is the appropriate measure to use. And while I respect the ombudsman's opinion, it's not his job to direct the policy of government. And his report was clear. We have followed our policy and the regulations within our department. And at this time, we have no intention of changing those regulations.
Next question. Catherine?
Yeah, Catherine Gurkowski, Alberta Today. I need some help understanding your move around the energy efficiency standards. Because what other levels of government have done, the city and the federal government, they recognize there's that upfront capital cost that does make it a little bit more expensive to build these type of homes. But then in the long run, people save money on their bills. So why go to striking this type of bylaw making authority as opposed to, say, bringing in a grant program to offset the cost?
No, listen, as I said in my remarks, and Canada needs one building code, and there are some variations. I accept that, but I think it's best when it's as consistent as it can be, and Alberta needs one building code. Now, this doesn't stop a municipality if they want to incent a higher standard of environmental equipment in a home, but they don't have the ability to demand it as a condition of building the home. So that way, because listen, and these two things are both important. I tried to say that clearly in my remarks, but I'll repeat it because it's still important. Having up-to-date and high standards of environmental building codes is important, and affordability is important. The more extra stuff you put in a home, the more expensive the home is to purchase. So we have to balance that. That's part of what we do as government of Alberta, and part of what we do in municipal affairs. We look after the building codes for Alberta. We're in line with the national building codes standards, and that's our job. It's not the municipality's job. And again, we're not stopping them if they want to have incentives to do something else. They just are not able to demand a different standard as a condition of building homes in their municipalities. In fact, if we were to allow that, that would probably get less, in my opinion, that would probably get less housing built at a time when the more housing is exactly what we need, and less housing is the last thing that we need.
Do you have a follow-up?
So I take it in your review, you're not going to increase the stringency of energy efficient requirements when you're doing it province-wide?
We just did. We just adopted the new national codes not that long ago. There's different tiers of environmental stringency, and we've adopted one of them.
So what's the conflict between cities and what you are doing then?
There's no conflict, and we don't want one. So we're just saying we get to set the building codes. They don't, and we're just making sure that's crystal clear.
Any other, Matthew?
Thanks. Yeah, just to follow up on the exemptions for nonprofits on housing. You described it as a blanket exemption, and I know nonprofits have, in the past, have said they've had trouble getting eligibility for comparable programs. Just explain the eligibility requirements, like it's everyone gets it, as simple as that?
I'll ask Minister Nixon to comment, but essentially it's if you're a nonprofit and you're building affordable housing, you shouldn't have to pay property tax. It should make it more affordable. So that's two elements of property tax, the provincial education property tax and the municipal property tax. And if you take both of those away, I think it stands to reason that you should be able to produce housing on that piece of property at less cost per home. I don't know if you have anything to add or not.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to be complicated. I do think that there have been challenges often with some of the federal government tax exemptions that you might be referring to. A lot of that is just about the distance from those housing providers, those nonprofits, and understanding who is actually building affordable housing units and who's building market housing units. But the reality is in our province, basically almost every true affordable housing project has some connection to the government, where we're supporting a housing authority or a municipality or a nonprofit organization to build their building. And what was happening in the past is we were then funding and working with that nonprofit organization, plus fundraising to get that built, and then paying taxes through Mr. McIver's system. And I think what he's fixing here is that makes no sense, and will bring stability to that. It will become an automatic process, as far as I'm concerned, with our housing programs as we are building affordable housing, that we will take that into context as we both plan projects, but also with our application process. With nonprofits as they're applying, so we can take that into an economic, consequences of that, which are positive, and make sure that the frameworks are done in such a way that will also probably increase access to CMHC funding as well, because it's going to lower the overall mortgage costs, or the cost to be able to keep that building up to date.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about, a lot of this is happening through regulation. Is there any timeline for that? Like, what's the process to bring those regulations?
Well, basically as soon as this session of the legislature is over, we intend to work closely with the municipalities and try to get over this spring and summer. We intend to work with them to try to get the regulation around Bill 40 on the election pieces. We feel like that has to be done by the first of next year. But some of this stuff is important too. We want this to have a positive effect on shovels in the ground, perhaps even this summer. Municipalities, I don't know whether that we can actually do that or not, but that's sooner is better than later, because the sooner you make it more affordable, better chance more affordable things will get built. But yeah, we're committed, as I said when we introduced Bill 40, to consult municipalities on the regulations. We're still committed to that. We will do that, and yeah, we really expect the municipalities will be very cooperative, and we look forward to working in that partnership with them.
Go ahead.
Mayor Takash, CTV News. This one's for Minister McIver. As of yesterday afternoon, Alberta municipalities said they haven't received a formal invitation for consultation. Have you reached out since then, or do you still plan to consult with the group, and how are you defining that consultation?
Well, again, I've had a couple of conversations with the president of Alberta Municipalities and the president of RMA and the mayors of Calgary and the mayor of Edmonton, and particularly around some of the issues of Bill 40. They weren't extensive, but it was really around the areas where we're contemplating amendments. Thought we'd cut to the chase, if you will. So we're hoping to have amendments ready. It's going through the system here. I hope to have them very soon to go back to them and say, okay, this is what we got. Is this kind of what you thought was a good idea? And you think this is an improvement on the legislation, and hopefully we'll get them to their sign off, and we can get the legislation in place and with them happier than they perhaps started out. So that was always the objective. It's still the plan.
Which specific municipalities have you reached out to, and what was the feedback?
Again, I think I talked to Calgary, Edmonton. I talked to the rural Alberta munis who represent, and between them and RMA, they represent all the municipalities in Alberta. Incidentally, I also talked to the president of the, Jeff Janung, the president of the Alberta mid-sized municipalities.
And their feedback, what they have to say?
They are very interested in the amendments that we're contemplating, and they look forward to seeing them. And like me, they're hopeful that that will make them happier, and I hope that that will make them happier. And we hope that we'll be able to move forward in a cooperative way for the benefit of all Albertans.
Okay, Catherine, go.
Yeah,
If
so
you
sorry,
have one more, go ahead.
Questions that Matthew's questions prompted. So what happens if it's one of those developments where there's subsidized units and market units? Is that eligible for the tax exemption, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
But there would be work done to recognize the difference between market units and affordable units. But we're capable of already doing that work internally in the department. What Minister McIver's work does is allow that to be able to take place, and so we would through a mathematical process figure out how do you give credit for the affordable housing units versus the market units.
And any idea how much that's going to cost in offsets?
Well, hopefully it ends up being slightly more than it costs, because that means we're building more houses. I think that Minister may want to supplement this. I don't think we're anticipating that it is a significant cost to the Treasury, but it will have a significant impact on those organizations, particularly for the longevity of their project. When you're dealing with projects that you're trying to finance 25, 30 years, to be able to eliminate something like property tax can really change the equations for those organizations. Well, again, I think having a pretty minimal impact on the fiscal situation for the province. But I don't know, Rick, if you want to supplement that.
I can't guarantee this, but it's my hope it will save money.
Yeah.
People with a home participate less in the justice system. They participate less in the health system. They participate less in the social services system because they're in self-control, self-reliant, and they in a position to make good decisions for themselves and their families. So, well, I can't guarantee you it will save money. I expect it will.
One other thing I would say to it is that one of the challenges we had was when the federal government brought out removing GST on affordable housing projects, which we supported. Most provinces would then have matched that by removing the provincial sales tax. Not a tool we have here because we don't have a provincial sales tax, right? So this gives us an ability to kind of amplify that work that the federal government was doing because, this is an area where we could enter in a tax area where other provinces, I think, have focused on this by removing PSTs in this process. We just can't do it because, well, we don't got one.
Okay, I think that's all the questions we have for today. Thank you for joining us.